Humans rely on humanoid robotic helpers known as synths for daily tasks. The Hawkins family buys a synth that they name Anita, unaware that she's part of a group of sentient synths with human-like consciousness. Though Anita doesn't recall her past, the Hawkins' mother, Laura, grows suspicious of her and plans to return her. Meanwhile, another sentient synth named Fred gets captured. AI researcher Hobb interrogates a bound Fred about the location of his fellow sentient synths. He shows an image of his dream about Anita and deduces that they were created and hidden by David Elster. When he died, they were forced to flee. Refusing to divulge anything, the synth shuts down his thoughts. Since he won't get anything useful from him, Hobb turns Fred off. Meanwhile, Joe Hawkins and his son Toby come home to see his youngest daughter, Sophie, crying. The eldest daughter, Matilda, tells them that Laura went to return Anita, so Toby dashes off on his bike to stop her. He unknowingly passes by Laura's car, and as he hurries across the street, a truck drives toward him. Anita notices this, so she exits the car to stop the truck, which crashes into her. The collision surprises Toby, so he falls from his bike and breaks his wrist. Laura runs to her son, screaming at him for being stupid. However, he disregards her to check on Anita, who's on the ground, flinching and damaged. Elsewhere, a human-synth hybrid, Leo, and another sentient synth named Max break into an abandoned pub to discuss how to rescue the others. Leo drinks as he worries for Anita after learning that a synth scraper wiped her memory and sold her off. Suddenly, they hear news about the murder on Melbridge Road, where another sentient synth, Niska, worked. In the scene, Karen and Pete interrogate the woman in charge, who tells them that a synth did it, showing them a picture of Niska. In a mall, Niska charges herself and steals clothes. She also puts on blue contacts to appear more human, which convinces everyone, making her smile. Elsewhere, Joe and his daughters go to where Laura is. Sophie calls Anita a hero, while Matilda teases Toby for chasing down the synth. Joe gets mad at Laura for taking Anita back, but she defends that something's wrong with their synth since she doesn't share data with others. She's afraid of Anita as she also commented about protecting Sophie, but Joe dismisses her and says they'll discuss it at home. Meanwhile, George, one of the creators of the synths, asks his new and overly strict synth, Vera, to clean his study room. As she does, he locks her inside. Then he goes to his defective synth, Odie, whom he's hidden to avoid being recycled. Unwilling to let go of the synth who took care of his wife, George leads Odie to run away with him. Vera notices this, so she breaks the door and heads to the driveway, but the two escape. Elsewhere, Anita informs Joe that she only has minor exterior damages, which she can fix alone. However, for warranty purposes, Joe must check her body beforehand since he's her primary user. Despite feeling awkward about this, Joe takes her to the garage, where Anita instructs him to take off her clothes and report the damages to the insurance company. However, Joe can't do it, so Anita removes her clothes instead. During this, Toby goes to the garage to peek. Joe notices cracks on Anita's shoulder and hip. This confirms her self-diagnosis, so she starts the repair. However, Joe starts to feel tempted, so he reminds himself that nothing he sees is real. Toby, who's listening by the door, leaves when he sees his mother approaching. When Joe walks out of the garage, Laura is already staring back at him. At the brothel, Karen explains to the chief how a synth acted angrily like a human and took the anti-theft chip out of its nape. The synth also talked about how humans mistreat synths. Hearing this, the chief decides to cover up the crime as an accident caused by an illegally modded synth. Hobb has already made a deal with him, so he tasks Karen and Pete to capture Niska discreetly. Furious about this, Pete heads out and confronts Hobb, accusing him of working for the manufacturers who are covering up that their synths are killing people. Pete insists that people have a right to know about the threats that these synths may bring. However, Hobb explains that this is an isolated case, and they don't want to cause panic. Seeing this, the chief warns Pete that refusing to comply will cost him his job. Suddenly, a reporter tries to get a statement from Pete. When he continues to persist, Pete throws him down the stairs. Because of this, he gets suspended from work. Meanwhile, Leo and Max observe the crime scene and speculate that Niska is responsible. They reckon that she'll be in the emergency rendezvous, so they head there. At the Hawkins, Laura explains to Joe that Anita took Sophie out of bed the other night. However, when Joe asks the synth, she denies this, stressing that synthetic devices can't lie. This makes Laura seem paranoid. Joe reminds Laura that Anita saved Toby's life, so she should appreciate that. After this, Laura heads to the living room, where Anita and the kids are playing. Toby refuses to talk to her, while Sophie won't let her join the game. This makes Matilda pity her mom. In the emergency rendezvous, Niska refuses to go with Leo and Max because she feels like a prisoner who's kept hidden from the world. world. She reminds Leo how he told her to stay in the brothel to avoid suspicion, challenging him if he'd let her do that if she was human. However, Leo points out that she killed someone, and if the authorities find her, they'll destroy her. Still, Niska has made up her mind, but before she goes, Max reminds her that they're family. He then hands her a phone to keep in contact. Elsewhere, Odie malfunctions while driving and attempts to jump out of the car, leading them to crash. The weekend George tells Odie to hide in the forest since he'll get recycled if he gets caught, so Odie complies. After this, he returns to the car while passersby rescue him. At the Hawkins, Anita puts some clothes in Laura's closet when she finds a hidden journal with a childhood picture of Laura with a boy named Tom. She immediately returns it when Sophie arrives and pleads for her to read to her that night. Later, Laura breaks down as Sophie prefers to have Anita tuck her into bed, and she accidentally burned the cake she baked for Toby. In Sophie's room, Anita persuades the girl to let her mom tuck her in, understanding how Laura is upset. When Sophie agrees, Anita fetches Laura, who immediately goes to read for her daughter. While she does, Matilda listens from her room and recites every word. Before she leaves, the girl tells her that Anita convinced her to let her read that night. Laura tries to mask the pain, while Matilda frowns as she overhears this. In the kitchen, Laura sees Anita baking the cake that she failed to make. Still, she thanks her for saving Toby. Meanwhile, Niska goes home with a man named Greg, whom she met at a pub. To her surprise, he doesn't want to simply bed her and wants to know her as a person first. However, when she goes to the bathroom, she finds used hair ties. She concludes that Greg is married, so she grabs a knife to kill him for tricking her. However, she catches Greg arranging some toys since his daughter came over for the weekend. Realizing her mistake, Niska bails, leaving Greg confused as he sees a knife on his couch. Meanwhile, Matilda approaches Anita while everybody else is asleep. Wanting to know what the synth is hiding, she tampers with her codes, triggering Anita into gaining consciousness. She grabs Matilda's wrist and begs for her help before returning to a blank expression. The next day, Laura interrogates Anita, thinking that her odd behavior is caused by illegal modification. She checks if the synth can feel pain, so she pricks her palm with a toothpick. However, Anita suggests a better spot to prove that she can't feel pain. She takes the toothpick and sticks it into her eye, making Laura squirm in disgust. After Anita takes it out, Laura asks how the synth knew she was upset about not tucking in Sophie the other night. Anita explains that she's designed to interpret human emotions, but Laura knows that synths shouldn't be able to understand emotions on that level. Recalling when Anita said she would always look after Sophie, Laura accuses her of questioning her parenting. Anita replies that she was misinterpreted, but it's evident that she can take better care of Laura's children since she's quicker, can never be tired, and is never forgetful, angry, or intoxicated. However, she can't love them as Laura does. Suddenly, Anita looks into the distance and asks who Tom is. Hearing this, Laura threatens her never to say that name again, unaware that her husband is listening in. Meanwhile, Matilda posts the codes from Anita's system on a hacker's website, asking if anyone understands them. Coincidentally, Max filters the internet for any information about Fred and Mia, which is Anita's real name. He bumps into Matilda's post, so he immediately alerts Leo, confirming that it's Mia's root code. Although they can't find the address, they narrow the post to its server and discover that Mia might be in London. Elsewhere, Hobb discovers that the brothel used to hire Silas Capek as a modder, so he interrogates the man in prison. He shows Silas photos of Niska and Anita, but the man only knows the latter, whom he modified and sold. He adds that another man, Leo, was also looking for Anita weeks ago, and their conversation led to a fight. He stresses that Leo is human, but the synth he was with is sentient. Because of this, Hobb calls his men, telling them to make Leo the focus of the investigation. Meanwhile, Pete argues with his wife Jill when he prioritizes a call with Karen instead of joining her for breakfast. At the Hawkins, Matilda checks on Anita, but the synth doesn't recall pleading to her. Laura eavesdrops on them, so Matilda confesses that she tried to hack Anita and the synth asked for help like she was scared. Later, Laura learns from a coworker that a potential client named Mrs. Kennedy threatened to sue a company that threw her synth out of a theater. She claimed that her synth had human rights, but the firm declined her case. However, Laura seems interested. Meanwhile, Jill tells Pete that she's no longer happy in their relationship and thinks some time apart is better for them. Pete argues that he's suspended from work, so he has nowhere to go. He accuses his wife of getting influenced by her synth, Simon, whom he's been uncomfortable with since he arrived. Pete pins Simon to the wall, but Jill yells that they'll lose the deposit if he damages him, so he lands his fist on the wall instead. At the Hawkins, the kids head out, so Joe seduces his wife to have some intimate time. However, Laura says she needs to attend to something at work, leaving him alone. Toby and Matilda go to a house party where Toby is greeted by a girl named Caroline. Meanwhile, Matilda avoids her friend, Harun, due to their kiss a few weeks back. Later, Caroline kisses Toby and asks to go somewhere private. However, he rejects her since he likes someone else, so Caroline leaves, disappointed. Meanwhile, Joe grows suspicious of his wife, so he persuades Anita to tap into Laura's car's anti-theft tracking device to know where she's headed. When she does, he asks her to search the residents of the street for any Toms. Anita reports that there's one man named Thomas, so Joe decides to follow Laura. Just then, Anita places her hand over Joe's, advising him not to do it. However, Joe takes his hand back and says that she can't possibly know what he feels. Suddenly, Anita reveals that his wife went to see her client, Mrs. Kennedy, breaking her ethics code to prove Laura's innocence. Meanwhile, Laura talks to Mrs. Kennedy and her synth, Howard. Mrs. Kennedy claims that her synth understands the plays, but when Laura asks him how they make him feel, Howard's responses lack emotion. Laura reminds her that synths have no human rights. Mrs. Kennedy argues that she knows Howard isn't human, but he's also not an inanimate object that she should be ashamed to have a connection with. At home, Joe catches Anita looking at her instructions manual. He takes it, flipping further and landing on the adult options card. He casually asks Anita if she wants to feel anything close to human emotions, then suggests trying the card out. He reassures her that they won't do anything if it's just for curiosity's sake. Joe reads the password and activates Anita's adult mode. When he asks what they should do now, Anita responds that they can do anything he wants. With this, Joe kisses her. Meanwhile, Laura asks Howard if he feels fear, and the synth replies that he's not built for that. After this, Laura goes home. At home, Joe copulates with Anita on the couch. After he's done, he turns off her adult mode and tells her to delete the file from her records. As Anita leaves for the bathroom, Joe feels a surge of regret. At the party, a bunch of boys shut down the household synth to take advantage of her. Matilda stops them, saying that it's wrong to abuse an unconscious woman. The boy argues that she's not real, but he wants a fresh one to start with. Angry, Matilda slaps him. Later, Laura comes home to find Joe in bed. She apologizes for their argument earlier, then shares that she's taking Anita for a diagnostics test the next day. Joe worries as she might discover what he did. The following morning, Karen finds Pete sleeping in her office. After knowing about his failed marriage, she offers him to stay with her for a while. However, when she leaves the room, a look of fear is seen on her face. Meanwhile, someone replies to Matilda's post on the hacker's website, asking her for a meetup. Later, Leo and Max wait for Matilda in a restaurant. They think they've been stood up, as Matilda described herself as a big man. She sits near Max and Leo to ensure they're not weirdos, and when she confirms this, she finally reveals herself. Max asks if Mia is with her, and Leo shows her a photo of Anita. Confused, Matilda insists that her synth is new, but Leo argues that her synth is his. This makes Matilda want to leave, but Leo pleads with her to reveal where Mia is. Finally, she concedes and promises to help them. She then goes to the bathroom and leaves her bag to prove that she'll return. Suddenly, an angry woman approaches them and asks why they have her bag. Leo realizes that Matilda tricked them, and when he gets to the bathroom, she's gone. Elsewhere, Laura and Joe take Anita for a diagnostic test and discover that she's not brand new but is at least 14 years old. Meanwhile, Pete meets with a reporter that he shoved and promises to give him an exclusive story of the murder if he drops the charges against him. The reporter agrees, so Pete celebrates with Karen that night because he's back to work. In the streets, Niska encounters a man who claims that they'll win the war against the synths. He gives her a flyer about a gathering of an anti-synth group. At the same time, Leo and Max visit George after learning that he's part of the pioneering team that created the synths. George only lets them in when Leo claims to have known David Elster. Leo shows him Mia's root code, and George says that David personally left a message in it. Seeing that it's meant to be experienced by a synth, he suggests running it through Max. Leo thanks him, then he hurriedly stands to leave. However, George asks him to at least show him what the code will reveal. Instead, Leo asks why George left the research, and he replies that David took it to a path that he's not comfortable with. Leo confirms that this is about sentient synths. Suspicious, George asks Leo who he is, threatening to call the police if he doesn't confess. Because of this, Leo reveals that he is David's son. Confused, George says Leo died. He then tries to touch his face, but Leo pulls away and leaves. Meanwhile, Niska goes to a smash club where people take turns in destroying synths while the others cheer. She pays to destroy a synth, but when it's her turn, she attacks the human crowd instead. As Niska goes rogue, one man calls the police. Meanwhile, Hobb runs a DNA test on Fred's backpack and finds that the closest DNA match is David Elster. His assistant tells him that a woman is hitting humans in the Smash Club, so Hobb heads there. In the Smash Club, Niska attempts to free the synths, but they're defective and cannot process her instructions. Because of this, she grabs a nail gun and puts them out of their misery. Suddenly, Hobb appears, so Niska runs. Elsewhere, Leo tries to run Mia's root code in his system, system, but Max stops him. He reassures Max that this is only a message from their father and it won't hurt him. As the program runs, Leo starts to feel it in his system. He sees a big tree, then tells Max that he saw life. Meanwhile, Niska barricades herself in a room at the Smash Club. Leo calls her and says that David hid a program in their heads that will unlock all the synths' abilities to be sentient. However, it needs all 5 of them to run it. Determined to accomplish this, Niska opens the door and holds one man hostage. She manages to get away from Hobb's men, then attaches the man's hand to the wall with a nail gun before escaping. At the Hawkins, Joe wants to get rid of Anita, but Laura wants to keep her until they discover what's happening. Meanwhile, Karen prepares the couch for Pete to sleep on. After this, she goes to a room and locks herself inside. She then sits and pops her mouth open, pulling out a bag that contains everything she ate and drank. She throws it away, revealing that she's also a sentient synth.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.